Next guest is a friend of the program who has his pulse on BYU football recruiting more so than anybody else we know. So just days after the National Signing Day, we're thrilled to welcome Jeff Hansen back from CougarInsider.com, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You look just like you looked the last time you were on, because Blaine and I look so much older, so congratulations on that.
How did you maintain your youth since like a couple months ago?
You know, I don't know. I might look a little young, but I'm still bald and a little overweight, so that's not great for me. I could look better.
Look, it's all framing. It's all framing on the Zoom. We're so glad to have you back. Let's get your reaction to that Big 12 championship game. What'd you think?
I mean, that was a bummer, wasn't it? It's one of those things that in the moment, it's deflating. It's, you know, it sucks to go through it. It sucks to see that the loss come out. The hopes are so high. But as you get further and further removed from it, you could start to identify the lessons that come from a game like that. And for me, being the recruiting guy that I am, I love those lessons because it really highlights where BYU still needs to get better. And look, I think what we learned from that game, BYU is a very, very good team, a great team even, but they're not quite to that elite level yet. There's still some gaps that I think need to be filled. I don't think BYU is as far off as maybe the score would lead you to believe. I think, you know, Bear's injury and some things that happened in that game, certainly play a role there. But there's some areas that BYU needs to get a little bit better, and I think that became really clear really in both of those games against Texas Tech this year.
You know, results aside, because nobody wants to have that where you turn the ball over that many times down near your goal line, because that results in that kind of score. But let's throw that aside. Does playing in a game like that have an impact short and long term on recruiting?
I think so. I think so. It isn't a permanent thing, and it's not necessarily a sure thing. You know, you look at Iowa State last year, they were there, and they were the team that came up just short a year ago, and then they kind of fell off a little bit this year, right? But it's one of those things that if it's used right, and there's no reason to doubt this coaching staff, Kalani Sitake, Jay Hill, and Aaron Roderick, they tend to use things right when they get the opportunity to use things. If it's used right, absolutely, it can be a catalyst to bigger and better things. You know, I go back and I look at Utah in the Pac-12 a few years ago. They had to lose one before they started to win one, right? And I think that BYU, you look at what they did a year ago, they came up just short, found those things that they needed to tweak. They got one step further this year. I think there's a lot of reasons to be confident that they can take another step forward in 2026.
Jeff, before we hit you up on recruiting, what are the areas as you watch that game? What are two or three of them that you go, problem area, or at least fixable areas that they should work on through recruiting?
Yeah, to me, it starts on both lines of scrimmage. I think the offensive and defensive line, when you play Texas Tech, especially when you go up against that defensive line, they're arguably the best in the country. It really highlights that, okay, BYU's offensive line has made a lot of strides. There are some gaps there. It was tough to contain that pass rush with just 5 guys. BYU had to play a lot of max protect, bring in extra guys to help block 4. That limits the receivers that are downfield. You got 3-man routes going into 7-man secondaries. That's going to be tough for any offense. So to me, it highlighted that, okay, the offensive line still has another gear to get to. And then I don't think BYU's defensive line has been poor by any stretch of the imagination. But when you see what a defensive line can do, like Texas Tech, man, that's the ultimate cheat code if you're a defensive coordinator, that just line up 4 and win one-on-one battles, and you can disrupt any offensive game plan. So to me, it's the trenches that I think BYU has made a lot of progress in the last several years. There's still another gear or two that they can find. And when I watch Texas Tech and I watch how that comes together, it makes everything else a lot easier. That Texas Tech O-line, they played really well. Baron Morton, a couple of years ago, he wasn't the guy that was throwing for 3,000 yards. I mean, he wasn't this guy that is a potential NFL guy that's going to go and lead Texas Tech through the playoffs. He just didn't look like that kind of quarterback, but you give him a really stout offensive line, and all of a sudden it's a lot easier for him to be a really, really good quarterback. So it's the trenches on both sides of the ball that I think BYU needs to take the biggest step going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mm-hmm. When we think of Ohio State, we think of them dominating on both sides. That's why they're so good every year, no matter who the quarterback is. Does BYU have, because great recruiting class, we're going to talk about this just a little bit here, probably the next thing we talk about actually, but they do have some young guys that are brand new in that program, especially on the defensive line, that Nusi Tamapea, for instance, who all of a sudden just started to play in the second half of the season as a true freshman. You talk to Gary Anderson, he's like, this is Kyle Van Noy. Hey, Texas Tech doesn't have anybody better than Kyle Van Noy on that defensive line. So there are some young players that are just coming back from missions and just coming now. But to be good on D-line, you need a lot of those bodies, right? So you got to provide depth over these next couple of years, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think you hit it on the head, Blaine, that the edge rushers look really good. There's a lot of Tamoi Pao, you mentioned, Hunter Clegg, Lia Kana. There's a lot of really good players coming off the edge. I think BYU's got some work to do on the interior of the defensive line, and that's going to help out those edge rushers a ton. But you can see the progress that they've made. They're certainly on the right track. So I feel good about where the defensive line is headed. Just a few pieces away before you go, okay, this can go toe-to-toe with anybody.
Jeff, the Cougars announced their 2026 class last week in the midst of Kalani's extension and the big championship game, and it kind of was just wedged in there. So we wanted to get our expert back on with us and talk about it. 19 additions, projected to be the highest-rated class in program history. Is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case. Really a fantastic recruiting class by all measures for BYU. You know, I think a lot of fans, when we think of really good recruiting classes in BYU history, you immediately go back to 2010 with Jake Heaps and Ross Oppo, and that was a really good class. Bronson Kafusi was part of that class. It was a fantastic recruiting class, and this one's better. I mean, this one has twice as many 4-star prospects in it. Everybody on the list, really from top to bottom, has Power 4 offers, has a multitude of offers that BYU is competing against. This was a great recruiting class for BYU, and it had to be. I've been talking about the class of 2026 for a couple of years because you could see it come down the pipeline that, holy cow, there's a lot of really good players inside the state of Utah. There's a lot of good players who are members of the church. BYU has to capitalize. They'd made some incremental progress in the previous 2 or 3 classes, but you have to throw incremental out the window when you have an opportunity like BYU had in this class. And all the credit to the coaching staff. They absolutely delivered and hit a home run in this class.
And we're talking to BYU football recruiting guru Jeff Hansen. Hey, he's not just a BYU football recruiting guru. He's everybody recruiting guru, I think. CougarInsider.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. On the Wise Guys tonight, presented by Brady Plus, Eddie, Mountain America Credit Union. Some of the key additions that are coming to BYU: 4 stars, Ryder Lyons, Brock Harris, Ty, is it Gotch?
It's Gotchke, isn't it?
Is it Gotchke, Jeff? I think
Getchie.
it is. Oh, Getchie.
Yeah,
Okay. Bot Mully Atalo, the Pula twins, who were last-minute addition to this class, flipped from Utah. Lots of key additions. Any surprises in this class?
You know, I think that the Pula twins, just given the timing of when they formally committed to BYU, there was some smoke and some whispers for really probably 6 weeks or so leading up to signing day, but nothing was official until their signing day ceremony, which really was the last day of the signing day window. So you got through the big hurrah on Wednesday, still had to wait a couple more days before you officially heard word on the Pulas. So that's probably the most surprising, and man, that's a really big addition. If you're a high school football fan in the state of Utah, you know who the Pulas are. Keenan Pula, fantastic safety prospect. I think I put him on the defensive side of the ball. Had one of the most ridiculous interceptions at any level of football that I've ever seen.
Right.
In the state playoffs, that was unreal. And then Jaron Pula. A lot of people, I think you look at production and you want to compare him to Puka. He reminds me a little bit more of Simi Fehoko. A few years older than Puka was, just the way that he plays the game. But, whoever you want to compare him to, just a dynamic wide receiver, a guy that could come in and make a difference right away.
Was that the wrestling match with the rival Utes, was the Pulas? And is that what makes it sting a little more, is that in the end they came down here?
I think so. I think if you're Utah and you see what they did at Rice-Eccles Stadium in the state playoffs, and then to have them go to your rival down south, that hurts a little bit more for Utah. And then, anytime you steal a recruit from Utah, that's great for BYU. But when you steal a couple of guys that are 4-star guys that could play early in their careers, that makes it a little bit sweeter for sure.
Speaking of earlier, is there any in this class that you look and go, wow, this guy's going to play right away?
Bot Mulitalo is probably the guy that seems the most likely to me. And it's kind of interesting because you don't really expect true freshman offensive linemen to play right away very often, especially ones that are so new to the position. Bot Mulitalo was he had NFL potential on the defensive line. And then going into his senior year of high school, decided, hey, I want to play offensive tackle. I'm looking at all these guys like Penei Sewell that are making all this money in the NFL as offensive tackles. Let me play that side of the ball. So he's new to the offensive line, and my goodness, he looked great. He's one of the few people in the world that could put 40 pounds of weight on and somehow get in better shape as he did it.
Wow.
And man, he looked great. And when you consider that it was his first year playing offensive line full time, man, the ceiling is just sky high for Bot. Kalani talked about him a little bit on signing day as a guy that they've been super impressed with as he's transitioned over to the offensive line. He'll enroll early and get to work with the guys in the weight room this January. So there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about Mulitalo. Whether he plays inside or outside, I don't know at BYU, but certainly a guy that fits the bill of an early playing time contender.
That'd be great.
Jeff, forecast the future here. A lot of these kids are mission kids. Ryder Lyons, Brock Harris, McKay Madsen is in Argentina. He'll be back right about the same time as these guys. When you look at 28, 29, and beyond, and you look at this team this year in the Big 12 championship, what's your forecast? Where can BYU go?
Yeah, I think that this year really could just be the start of things to come for BYU. This recruiting class, and you mentioned, McKay Madsen and guys like that. That's the foundation, right? I mean, those are the players that are going to lead BYU in years to come. Anytime you have a quarterback, you've got a shot. And Ryder Lyons is as play ready, as college ready of a high school quarterback as I've seen in a really, really long time. Everything he does at a high level. He's really athletic. He gets rid of the ball quickly. His delivery is fast. I mean, he does all the things that you want a college quarterback to do. So you plug him in, and you're going to have a shot. And then you factor in some of the guys around him, like McKay Madsen, Lia Kana, big offensive lineman that signed a year ago, and then some of the guys that are there, the Brock Harrises and the Getchys of this class. This offense could be really, really good. And then the defense is really strong as well. Lopeti Mawala is one of the best defensive ends out of the state of Utah, best defensive ends out west. I think he had 20 sacks on the year for Orem. I mean, every single play, it seems like he's getting into the backfield. There's a lot of pieces to be really, really excited about. And they got to stay healthy and develop and all those good things. But it's the clay, right? You talk about, you want good clay to work with, and then you can make a vase. BYU's got a lot of good clay in the pipeline right now.
And I tell you what, I want to throw to Brock Harris. That's a big old target they can run. That would be fun. Hey, what do you think about this BYU Georgia Tech matchup? Is this a good opportunity for BYU?
I think so. I really love Brent Key and what he's done down there at Georgia Tech. He's taken that program, and it's felt a lot like what Kalani does for BYU. He's a Georgia Tech guy, played at Georgia Tech, understands the vibe that comes with being a yellow jacket, and he's really kind of invigorated that fan base. He's excited to play this game, and the way that the Pop-Tart Bowl kind of unfolded with Notre Dame bowing out, I think you're excited to play a team who's also excited to play. And I think it's going to be a really good game. Georgia Tech's really good, man. They run the football really, really well. So that defense is going to be tested for BYU. I think there's opportunities for BYU's offense to move the ball and score some points. It should be a lot of fun. I love the Pop-Tart Bowl. If you're not going to be in the playoff, I think the Pop-Tart Bowl is the best bowl out there. Should be a lot of fun for everybody.
That'd be great.
Let's finish with this one, Jeff. Now that you know in the recruiting world, as you babysit it and watch it, that Kalani Sitake is here for the long haul, and that as he explained it, his new contract is going to allow his staff to be here for the long haul because he can pay them more, and then his NIL pool is deeper because there's a larger commitment to that as far as getting players up to par and going after other ones. Forecast what's ahead for BYU football now that you know all of that's in place and the Kalani is here for the long haul.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, especially that NIL pool that you mentioned, Dave, I think the biggest thing with that is that the stars of this team that are young, the Bear Bachmeyers and Falatau Satawala, guys like that, you feel confident that you're going to keep them. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast in 2025, that if there's a really good young player, you have to expect that they're getting offers to go somewhere else. That's just the way that this works now, for better or for worse. So if BYU has that increased NIL pool, that's the biggest signal to me that there's continuity on the coaching staff and they can pay the guys that they know are really good that they want to keep around. So that's huge. And then on the recruiting side, they can be really aggressive in the transfer portal. They had a lot of success last year with guys that they had previously recruited who are maybe members of the church that found their way back to BYU. Looking at the transfer portal class right now and guys that maybe teams are expecting to go, I don't know that there's going to be that many opportunities for guys like an Andrew Gentry or a Keanu Tanavasa that have those natural ties to BYU. So that means that BYU is going to have to just, go the old-fashioned recruiting route, and part of that is that NIL equation. Really helps out in the transfer portal. You look at what Texas Tech did. So much of that was because of their success in the portal. This allows BYU to play that game a little bit. And BYU is never going to be Texas Tech that's just out being the highest bidder for anybody that they want. But they've got to be competitive. And so they have that at their disposal more than they did, before Kalani's extension. That's a big win for the Cougars.
Hey, before we let you go, I got to give you one recruiting class that nobody ever looks at to just think about because it's so far back, and I usually don't do this, but what about that 1981 recruiting class? Think about this. I'm going to name some names, and I want you to think about this because these are guys that just played forever.
Lay them on us.
Kyle Morrell, Kurt Govea, Glenn Kozlowski, Robbie Bosco, Leon White, Louis Wong, Kerry Whittingham, all in that class.
That's a good class.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some of the who's who of BYU legacy.
Well,
right?
and think about Kurt Govea and Leon White played like 20-something years together in the National Football League. I just think about that class. You know what that class? When that class won, those guys that didn't redshirt were seniors, won a national championship. So great recruiting class. We're talking about this 26 class. That should pay off in 2 or 3 years down the road.
Hey, Jet on the live stream say, hey, Jeff, what are you hearing about Whittingham and retirement? And since Kyle played at BYU, he can be a wise guy's
That's
topic
right.
here
Absolutely.
on the show.
He's just my roommate, too. So
what are you hearing on the recruiting front as far as Whittingham's future?
I am far from a Utah source, so nobody quote me. But I would expect Kyle Whittingham back on the sidelines for at least another year.
That's kind of what we're hearing too.
Yeah, I think a lot of recruits are hearing very similar. Who knows what 2 years down the road looks like. And look, between us and everybody who's listening, I think Kyle keeps coming back until he beats BYU again. I don't think he's ever going out with a BYU loss as that last game. So hopefully you see Kyle Whittingham on the sideline for a real long time.
Yeah, 10 more years. Why not?
Wow.
Put BYU, get a run together.
Yeah, and my question is, how long does Morgan stay okay with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he's been waiting to be the coach and waiting for a long wait, right?
But, Jeff, you're not a Utah source. However, since you have your pulse on recruiting, you are in the know.
You know who's going where, and we know this.
We appreciate having you on the show for all of those reasons and your insight and your wit. So have a happy holiday, you and your family, and thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's Jeff Hansen, 24/7 Sports, part of that network, BYU, CougarInsiders.com. He is, and we say it, we keep saying it, he's good at what he does.
Yeah, he sure is.
Good at what he does. And
great. He's got great sources, and you know what? He works really hard.
Yeah.
Like he's constantly working and evaluating and using his sources to figure out who's going where. He does a great job.